because
Oh,
they're not
well, I think we
too
need like
bad.
track 2 then, and we'll like
Oh,
go
no, no,
extend
no.
our nerdy items.
Well, I tried to make things that were not too nerdy. Like, I mean, just to throw out there, I had periodontal ligament, I had, impacted canines, I had, proprioceptors. I mean, I have a whole list of things, probably about 20 things. I'm like, I think these ones are probably the best.
I'd love to linger longer. So if you're enjoying the discussion, stick around. An extended track where we continue the conversation, unfiltered, unhurried, and full of extra insights.
Okay, my name's Jordan Hillam. I have 5 kids, and like you said, I would hope that, you hope that you can teach your kids all the things that they need to know, but the truth is you're probably not, and so maybe you just hope that life teaches them the lessons that they need to learn. We've had lots of fun journeys and adventures together. I'm an orthodontist that's tied to being grateful. I'm trying to teach my kids good life skills and help them to be good humans. I think a part of it is trying to, as I've thought about this thing, and once again, going back to the beginning, to me, in my mind, the opposite of gratitude is entitlement. So if we just feel that we're entitled to things, we're never going to be grateful for them. So I set my goals according to the things that I am grateful for, hoping to improve in those areas and at a minimum maintain them.
Yeah. So I asked my kids today, because I knew that we were doing this, what are you grateful for?
But,
and they all went through different things. And it was really interesting to hear, like, Finn said he's grateful for farts. I was like, thanks, Finn. Thanks for your contribution, right? And then, like, grateful for the dog and grateful for the car. And, like, it was just a fun little exercise to do. Do you do that regularly with your kids?
Yes. Well, I think at this point, a lot of them are on like autopilot. I should hear the words, thank you, I'm grateful daily from them. If I'm not, then something might be wrong, but yeah, I think it's this is a cliche, but it's true. It's an attitude of gratitude. You live your life in thanks and thanksgiving. We're grateful, and everything that we have really does come from God ultimately. And if we can recognize that in our lives, we'll be happier.
Items.
I think if I start talking about proprioceptors in your teeth and how they prevent you from grinding your teeth off.
Hey, my mom totally has that.
Yeah, right? Most people do, but then you think, like, in our lives, what are the things that help us to not hurt ourselves?
Yeah.
Like, and, kids, you say, well, you have parents, and parents can't prevent everything, but you're either going to learn from the wisdom of others, or you're going to learn through hard knocks.
Yes.
And you'd rather learn from the wisdom of others and from your parents and from your friends and through observing, because we just don't live long enough to make all the mistakes.
Yeah.
Our lives are relatively short. And so that's why I love learning.
And that's kind of the plan, right? Like, we came here to learn.
Yes.
And to experience, whether we learn it from others or ourselves,
Yep.
right? Like, it impacts us.
It'd be good if we could just learn from others, and then we can maybe reach a little bit higher in some of the more noble things to think about in life.
Yeah.
But if we spend all of our time in the weeds trying to figure out life and trying to make every mistake that we can possibly make, I don't think that's a recipe for happiness.
No, it's not. One of my children came to me, who's now moved out, so that narrows it down, and said, Mom, why do I always have to do it the hardest way possible? And I wanted to say, I mean, I told you so, but you don't say that, because that's terrible to say.
Right.
But I think it goes back to, and Garth and I talk a lot about, like, letting them experience it and go through it, which is hard, especially my achiever. Like, I know the way, like, I'm not.
I can solve it.
Yes, I'm not. What do I say? I'm not always right, but I'm usually never wrong. And so, like.
Said with confidence.
Yes,
I like it.
Yes.
I just hope, like, I look at my kids and I look at the things that they do and the things that I do, quite frankly, and I just really hope that they can all be better parents than me.
Yes.
Because I've told them many times, like, look, I am not a perfect parent. There's no such thing. Like, newsflash, your parents are imperfect and they do things that aren't right all the time.
And they're probably trying their best.
They are trying their best. And and this goes to actually another thing that I had, but that taking responsibility for your life and saying, I am the change agent. I'm the one who can move my feelings, really.
Yeah.
I can move how I feel. I can move what I do, and I can move what I say, and all the things. And not trying to blame things on others, but instead being grateful. Like, when I not to continue, but like in the 10 commandments, one of the only commandment that has a blessing associated with it is honor your father and your mother that your days may be long upon the land. Honor in one context means to bring honor to them, not necessarily to listen to everything that they say. My kids definitely don't listen to everything that I say. Like, that's a daily occurrence. But I would hope that that they will do things that will help me to be proud of them. Like when I drop them off every day at school, I will say things that they can repeat it. In fact, they tell me now. I don't even tell them. Remember who you are, what you stand for, return with honor. Remember whose you are. And I'll say those things, not necessarily in that order, but just I'll throw it out there at them because I want them to be thinking about that as they go into school. But I think that it's important that like, I am grateful for my parents. I love them. I know they're not perfect, but dang, if I could be as good a parent as them, I would be very, very happy. I get concerned sometimes, and I'm not. There are definitely people out there that have like abusive situations, and I'm not talking about that. But if your parents were trying and they did a pretty dang good job, I always get concerned when people are complaining about their parents, or they will do things that like they'll not have their parents involved in their lives, or they will withhold their grandchildren from their parents or their children from their parents. Like I think that's just really sad. It's in my mind, I'm saying you're not grateful for your parents, and you need to be. I don't care if they weren't the best in the world. Like I've coached kids that their parents they struggle with all sorts of things. I mean, I talked to a 9-year-old who he was his mother's, how would you put it? And she even said this, he was her accountability partner for her drinking.
Oh man, that's a lot of responsibility for a 9-year-old.
Should not be the case.
Yeah. Should
not be that way. But as a coach, and I would say this for anybody, even in that situation, it's like, you need to be grateful for your mom. She's paying for you to play football. Like, and she brings you to practice, and she's not perfect, but you will respect your mom, and you will be grateful for your mom. That's important, or else your days will not be long upon the earth.
They will be numbered.
They will be numbered. And so, yeah, you need to be grateful for your parents. You need to be grateful for those who have gone before, for the pioneers who have, made the path for you to follow. And we shouldn't resent them or be mad at them. They weren't perfect by any means. I mean, just like the founders of our country, it's like they were imperfect people. In fact, they even acknowledged as such.
Yeah.
They were slave owners. They knew it was bad, and they still were. But, I think of how many people today, I mean, they've done something bad, or they're doing something bad, and they won't acknowledge it. I think at least you can say, like, I'm a sinner and I'm working at it.
Yeah.
But I think that it's important to honor those who have gone before, that have made our lives a little bit better, and not to just, judge the past based on our ivory tower current circumstances. But anyway, that's all.
So I just want, the last thing is, how have you become who you are?
Oh, my parents and my wife. I'd say, like, and Valentine's Day is coming up, but like when I look at Mother's Day and I look at the women in my life, my wife, my mother, my grandmothers, my daughters even, I mean, they have really formed a lot of who I am today. So most importantly, though, I will say, like, if I really think about this, it's probably my relationship with God, reading who he is, who he expects me to be, and then trying to be like that, and realizing that I am happier as I make choices to act and not just to be acted upon. That I make choices to try to be a little bit more Christ-like, and then I feel happy. Like, once again, I feel like in our society, I feel like a lot of times people, they just want to act how they feel. And once again, little kids can do that. I'm not saying that's not how I'm feeling many times when they're crying about something. But as adults, it's important that we act appropriately, and then we feel those blessings, and we feel happy because of that. We're moving in the right direction. But so God, the women in my life, and then lots of different great influences. I mean, Jamie, you're one of them. I mean, like, having good friends around you that lift you up, that believe in the same things, that are doing things differently, better, that you can learn from and say, yeah, I need to do that. I need to do that in my life. I need to, just as you're sitting there doing this podcast, this is family history. Like, you're going to be able to go back, and your kids and grandkids and great grandkids will look back at this and go, look how cool grandma was. Like, she wanted to know how to be better in these ways. She wanted to look at herself and others and see how she could improve things and how we could have better relationships and act better. And so she recorded all these podcasts, and now we can listen to them and, like, hear what she valued. And that's that's amazing. And I go, yeah, I need to do better at that. Quite frankly, I probably need to record better in my journal and record things in my life and help my kids to see them, because the truth is, like you said, is you don't have very long. And then when they're gone, every parent that I know that has had kids that have left have asked themselves, did I teach them enough? Yeah. Did they do enough? Because we have all these life experiences. We want all of our kids to have all of the good life experiences that we have and none of the bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the reality is they're going to have their own good and bad experiences. But you'd hope that maybe they can learn a few things, and hopefully they can be grateful for those things and look back at us and know that we're not the perfect parents, but I hope you're grateful for a few things that you were able to learn before you had to go stand on your own 2 feet and face the world.
Yeah. So recently, Gracie was in the ICU. Did you hear that?
I heard. Yeah. And as a matter of fact, she connected with.
Yes. Oh yeah, it was
Megan.
Your cousin that helped. Yeah, it was fabulous. And so I've been struggling a lot, and I've actually been struggling with this for like 10 years since she was diagnosed. People say all the time, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm so sorry that you're going through this. And I understand, like, okay, that's coming from a good place. But, like, I'm not sorry, because it's hard things. And, like, I'm grateful that we're going through this. And, yeah, it's hard. And, yeah, like, it ended up in the ICU this last weekend. But, like, I want a better response to them when people say, oh, I'm so sorry that that's so hard for you. And maybe it's, like, as a parent, when... I don't know why it just gets to me, that I'm so sorry statement.
Yeah, because it's speaking, because that's a very mature response. Not everyone can say that. That's the thing, is you've come to a place where you're grateful for your challenges and trials. And because you know that, yeah, the challenge was this hard, but the blessings are this much.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's hard, and you're speaking to that. But what you're not seeing is this. But the reality is that you've been able to turn this problem into this big blessing, and not everybody can do that. And so, you know, I'd say the person that's saying that is probably not realizing, has maybe never had that. They see challenges as all of them are stumbling blocks. So I'm sorry for every challenge you have.
Right.
But the truth is, you know, as we learn to overcome our challenges, and as we learn that once, like, embraces, like, this is a challenge, it's a struggle, but we're choosing this struggle. Now, not all struggles are chosen. Type 1 diabetes is not chosen.
Right.
It's a trial that's thrust upon you. But regardless, we choose trials, and trials come upon us. They're dealt with similarly, you know, where we say, we're going to take this challenge and we're going to become better for it. We're going to step up instead of fall down. Yeah. But that's something you've been able to learn, and you wish that they could learn that.
So, and I wish I could challenge anybody. Like, if you've said lately to somebody, I'm so sorry for blank.
Yeah.
Like, can you figure out a way to turn it into a gratitude way of saying it?
Well, as you were saying that, I have a podcast that I listened to, and I loved this response. He was talking about how one of his kids came and said, "Dad, I'm so bored. I need something to do." And his response was, "You're not bored, you're boring."
I love that.
And so then he's like, and they never came and talked to me again about being bored, because they realized that, like, I need to just
That's a you problem.
That's a you problem, right?
Yeah.
And so it's something that says kid coming with a specific problem, and he's answering with, this is a character flaw.
Yeah.
And you're kind of saying the same thing, like, you're coming to me with, like, a specific response to this problem, but really this is probably a character flaw. But you don't know how to respond in a way.
That's rude when you say that back to him on Facebook.
Right, but you can't say, actually, you need to learn more about life.
Yeah.
But I would probably, like, as you were saying that, though, I was kind of thinking, I was like, you know, if someone came to me and say, I'm so sorry for your loss, or I'm so sorry for this challenge, you'd almost want to say something like, I'm sorry you don't know how to.
I'm sorry you're not experiencing the awesomeness that I'm
experiencing. I'm sorry you're not realizing that challenges are blessings.
Right.
Something like that. But it's hard to say that, because then, you know, they probably would look inward and go, oh, it's maybe a character flaw for me.
Yeah.
But I think, to your point, though, it's their intent. They're trying to empathize, which is hard. Like, I'm bad at empathizing. So therefore, a lot of times I just don't, because I know that if I was to say anything, and I internalize these things, it probably doesn't come across as very empathetic, because I struggle to be empathetic. But having said that, like, even just yesterday, I was talking to a friend of mine who I needed to break the ice, because something had happened that was really difficult, and I knew it was difficult for them. But I said, look, I made the comment. I said, I'm sorry for what happened. I'm sure that's super hard. How are you doing?
Yeah.
And I mean, it just barely happened. So they weren't doing very well.
Right.
So
Bad.
bad is the right, and that's the right answer. And I would have expected that.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm here, I want to help, but really most of the help that we give, truthfully, is we listen and we're just there. Like, in fact, even it's in the Jewish culture. I love the Jewish culture, but they have this time when, when they have somebody that passes away where they just come and sit with them. They don't even say anything. They're just there. They're physically present. And I think there's a lot to be said about that, but that's kind of a side note. But
Yeah. I just feel gratitude is the right place to express. If you're trying to express to somebody sorrow,
right.
if you can come to it with an attitude of gratitude and try to figure out a way to say, like, I'm so grateful she's alive, or I'm so grateful that, like,
right.
whatever the experience is, try and come from it at that angle, because the person going through it doesn't, and maybe this is just me, I don't need the sorrow. Like,
right.
I'm trying to survive here. Like,
right.
I don't know. And
well, and I think there's a certain, at least for me, like when I see somebody going through a trial, like a hard trial, one that I would definitely not wish upon anybody, let alone myself, there is a sense of, I'm grateful I'm not going through that.
Yeah.
And I think that
that's also rude to say to somebody.
You can never say that ever.
Right.
But I think that a lot of times when people see that, that's a definite first response. Like, oh, I'm grateful I'm not there.
Yeah.
However, that's not necessarily the right kind of gratitude you're wanting to express to them. You're wanting to probably, but then at the same time, like, it's probably not very good for them to come out and say something that you should be grateful for.
Right.
Like, but you should be grateful that she's at least with us.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, that's not helpful for me.
No.
Like, I don't want you to tell me what I'm grateful for. Like, and I don't want you to tell me what you're grateful for, but there is a sense of, like, maybe it's a step back to say, I'm grateful that we're friends, that you could share that with me, that you had enough confidence to share that, and that or I'm grateful that we have a cousin that's down there that has done this, that maybe we can help, right? So maybe the gratitude needs to come not from the specific circumstance, but from a developed relationship circumstance. Yeah. But sometimes that's even hard, because you go, well, I think we're friends. Can I say something? I don't know.
Yeah.
But grief is hard. It's hard for everyone. It's hard for those going through, and it's hard for those who are close and need, because you feel the need. It's a human, God-like thing to want to mourn with those that mourn and comfort those that stand in need of comfort. And as humans, we desire to care for others and be cared for. That's one of the most innate desires that we have, is to be cared for. But people want to give and receive that differently.
Yeah.
And that's where everyone's values kind of come into place. But at a minimum, I do feel like, at least when I'm grieving, not necessarily right in the, well, I don't know, it's just different. You want people around you.
Yeah.
You want support. There is that support that's there.
Yeah. And at church, and we'll wrap up, I promise, sometime. But at church, in passing in the hall all the time, you say, how are you doing? Right? Like, that's just a common, and people don't really want to know. Like, I mean, they do, but you don't. And, like, it's a hard balance to help. And again, keeping in mind this attitude of gratitude, like how to help somebody who is really, really hurting.
Yeah.
And how to ask the right questions, and how to approach them in the right way, and come from, and I think it comes from this practice of gratitude that you've talked about for so long, and that I've experienced with these really hard trials that I didn't want, and how to get to be in that place, which I feel like it comes back to relationships.
Yeah, and having those relationships enough to not be perfect in your interactions, but to have the relationship to know that it's coming from a good place.
Yeah.
And that's hard, though. That's not easy. I mean, heck, I've always been amazed at how well certain people are able to deal with mourning and trials. To me, I mean, but this family in particular, their ability to have a tragic event that I would say, as far as tragedies go, might be the worst.
Yeah.
But to be able to have that happen, and not only be graciously accepting of those who want to try to help, and and believe me, people say horrible things in an effort to try to be empathetic.
Yeah.
But then to be able to that's a miracle in of itself. But the greater miracle is to be able to then turn around and comfort the other people who didn't experience this at all, that are grateful they didn't experience that, but are hurt and are now being comforted by those who did experience it.
Yeah.
And that to me is a miracle beyond my understanding. And that is truly an atonement type characteristic to do something for others that they cannot do for themselves. That these people, the only way they were probably going to be comforted was to receive comfort from those who experienced it. And that's why I think a lot of times you go to these groups that, when you talk about groups of people who, have experienced these tragedies, that are able to comfort others or help others through. I mean, that's a godlike characteristic that's not natural. You don't see other animals doing that.
Right.
I mean, being able to help others when they've been so hurt.
Yeah.
But I truly saw that, and I am amazed by it.
And the ripples effect of it. Like, we were so on the sidelines of that experience of that family, and it still greatly impacted our family.
Oh, yes.
So that incident that has happened, and so many incidents that happen, and how that impact is so great spread.
Yeah. But I think this life, for me personally, like I said, I can admit it, I do struggle with empathy. Like, and I don't know if it's a protective mechanism for me, where if I don't feel their sorrows as much, I can navigate more clearly.
But I think also, like, because it's a strength that you have, right? Like, everybody has it, but it's really low on my CliftonStrengths. Empathy is really low on mine.
True. I don't even know. I just know it's low, but I didn't remember the number. But here's something about life that I've learned. As life happens, as I experience more life, I am a lot more empathetic. And I think it's just natural because I'm a lot more empathetic to people who have gone through divorce, because there's been close people to me that have gone through divorce, or people that have medical challenges, or people who lose loved ones. Like, as you experience these things, you just are more empathetic. And I know that happens because there are certain things that will be said that I'm not at a loss of words many times in my life. I have a big mouth. My dad told me so. I fit all my wisdom teeth in there. But like, certain things will be said to me, and I cannot respond to those things now. But it's not something that I used to have. It's something that I am developing. Yeah. It's like tears come. Like, I can remember writing this paper in college where I talked about the 5 times that I could remember crying. Because I was not a crier. I'm not a crier. I don't empathize enough. I don't empathize enough with people to cry. Like, even in shows, it's like, I just don't. It's a struggle for me to feel what you're feeling in this whole thing. But my wife's bawling, and my girls are crying. Even some of my boys are kind of like, I don't know what this is. But I can say that over time, as life happens and as experiences happen, and as those connections are made, you read a book, you watch a film, and now I can count 5 times this last couple of weeks that I've probably struggled with something, but so I don't know, maybe there are certain characteristics that just are going to be naturally developed over life experiences that you choose to have.
Well, and like Jesus cried, right? Like, and I love the story of him raising Lazarus, because he gets there and they're like, hey, you were late. Like, you could have fixed this. And he doesn't just instantly fix it. He actually knows he's going to fix it. Yeah. But he cries.
And he empathizes with them.
Yes.
Like, he goes through that mourning with them.
Yes.
Even when you're right. He knew he was going to perform that miracle. Yeah. Like, I mean, he even said he was going to perform that miracle prior to, and still he empathized and cried with them. And that's once again, a very godlike characteristic, and one that, I'm working on. But yeah, things to improve upon.
Yes.
It's not a short list of things to improve upon.
And I think that's kind of like the theme of this podcast is we're eternally becoming. Yeah. It's not something that you hit 18 and then you've become.
You're not one and done. You don't straighten your teeth and then just they're going to go back if you don't actively work to keep things straight. You've got to be grateful throughout your life. You've got to have charity throughout your life, have hope, have faith, have love, have developed knowledge, integrity, all of those things are something that we're constantly striving to develop. And I feel like a lot of those characteristics are kind of like an escalator that you're climbing up. If you do nothing and you're stagnant, you're just going to go back down by entropy. Like, you've got to be actively working against the natural man. That is a struggle, because, like I said, the natural man is the antithesis to all of those things. It doesn't like all those things. And so, once again, though, in society and as a church, in our families, we're just trying to help people to be good humans and to be happy about it. And that's why I feel like being grateful is just a key, because if you're grateful, you will be happy, because you're just happy you're not throwing up anymore. You're just happy that you're healthy. You're just happy that, like, people ask all the time, like, I love camping. And I take my young men camping all the time. I take my family camping. And a lot of people are like, why do you love camping? Truth is, nobody really loves it. Okay. You tell yourself you love it. I tell myself I love it. And do I love it now? Yes, but it's not because of the actual camping. It's not like anybody loves to just go lay in a bed that's not their own and freeze. I just did that like a few weeks ago. And it's not because of that. What I love is I love that I'm more grateful for my house. I'm more grateful for my bed. I'm more grateful for my food. I'm more grateful for everything in my life after I go camping. That's why moms will be like, man, they're just so different after they've been gone for like a week.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with college. They go in and they come home and they're grateful for
the ranch in the pantry.
Yeah,
like,
they're grateful for food. Like, so I think in our lives we have to and we live such comfortable lives. We never miss meals. We are, we have these wonderful houses and these great neighbors, and we live in a safe place, that you almost have to force yourself to experience some of these things to just be grateful. And, in the scriptures, it talks about how, that we need to be grateful, and you don't want to be compelled to be humbled and grateful. Like, that's not fun. But, those things happen, whether by own choices or by circumstances or they just happen. But I would rather live life grateful in order to just be happy, because being grateful is a choice. Therefore, in a sense, being happy is a choice, but if like I said, if you're just living a life of comfort and you're never grateful for anything, then that's just sad.
Yeah. So I feel like I've said the final thing a couple of times now, but one of the other podcasts we're going to have is on the pursuit of happiness with the early saints.
Oh, love that.
And how, it's this really, will is amazing, and how Joseph Smith went into the grove of trees and really for this pursuit of happiness and what to do with that. And happiness is an interesting word. And on the JOYrific chart, it's not actually on there, because I had it, be helpful, be happy, because obviously that's awesome and that's who I am. But not everybody's happy. And there are times, and there's mental health, and there's all the things that happen.
Yes, absolutely.
And so, but being kind is something that you can always be.
Yep.
And so this pursuit of happiness, which I think is an eternal pursuit, and it's okay if you're sad, and it's okay if you're going through hard things, and it's okay if you're not happy. But this pursuit of happiness, this eternal pursuit of happiness, I think is so true and so important.
I love that phrase, though, that we find in the Declaration of Independence, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, not happiness.
Right.
It doesn't say happiness, because I think even the founders, who I value as inspired men, that they didn't put life, liberty, and happiness, because I think happiness is something that you're always pursuing. We are, Adam fell that men might be, and men are that they might have joy. We are meant to be happy. Wickedness never was happiness. Alma 41:10. Like, there's so many scriptures that talk about happiness and how we achieve it. And quite frankly, like you said, there's things that just happen to us that are going to make us sad.
Yeah.
And there are things that happen to us that will make us happy. But I do feel like, and this is where you can kind of come into nuances of like joy versus happy. Is joy like something that's kind of within, and happiness is something that's fleeting, like the sugar rush versus the fat that we can sustain ourselves on. Mm-hmm. But I like the idea that it's something that we can pursue. I have found in my life that I am more happy when I am kind, when I'm grateful, when I have faith, when I'm trying to, and I didn't talk about this, but it is a true fact. Fake it till you make it. If you don't feel like you're a kind person, you can do kind acts, and you can fake it till you are kind. Yeah. If you're not a grateful person, or you don't feel grateful, you can start saying thank you, and you can fake it till you make it, until eventually it becomes a habit that becomes who you are. But even like when I'm in my office passing instruments that I do hundreds of times a day, I will say thank you, thank you, thank you. I just under my breath. Why? Because I need to live grateful that I have somebody to pass me my instruments. If I just expect it, I'm never grateful for it.
Yeah.
But I feel like the gospel and how it helps us to pursue these godlike characteristics and qualities that points us in the right direction, that helps us to become, and in that process of becoming, we are happy. We're not happy if we're going the other direction.
Right.
We're not happy riding the escalator. When people say, go with the flow or, coast, there's only one way to coast. It's down. There's only, we got to be actively trying to improve ourselves. And if we're not, then we're just stagnant. But truthfully, if you think about even this conversation, Jamie, a lot of us getting better comes from sitting and talking to each other.
And listening.
Yeah. But as we do that, we gain little nuggets of things that's like, oh, well, I can do that. Or oh, I didn't know that, but now that I know that, I'm going to probably act differently. But that's why, like, I have this new phrase, like in my pre-scorm, that I'll talk about at the beginning, because I'm like, how is this different than other meetings that we have in the church? And I get lots of responses, but I'll say, look, it talks about in the Book of Mormon, it talks about how they met together oft to discuss the welfare of their souls. And I'm like, so we're going to now discuss the welfare of our souls. And really what that is, we're going to talk about good things, bad things, fun things, not so fun things. And we're discussing the welfare of our souls because as we discuss that and we're all engaged in each other's lives, like we gain little nuggets of
that
things.
relationship.
That relationship is helpful. And you go, well, I want to be more like that person, or I don't want to be like that person, or I want to do this, but I don't want to do that. Like, it's important that as humans, we discuss the welfare of our souls. Yeah. And that's really what you're talking about. I mean, in this podcast and others, the pursuit of happiness, we're trying to pursue this thing that we might not have enough of, but we want more of. Yeah. We're discussing where we are at, our welfare, and where we should go or where we want to go.
Yeah. And there's not a perfect way to do it.
No.
Like, everybody's different. And like, not everybody can do Taco Tuesday, right? But Garth can do Taco Tuesday.
I like Taco Tuesday. My kids love Taco Tuesday, but they have practice.
Well, and that's okay. And we love that. And every once in a while you get an off season. And,
it's going to be soon.
And we then catch you.
That's why from after basketball until football, that's why we said no to baseball. And in the wintertime, I'm fine. Like, some people will spend their time on a mountain skiing. I would love that. But I spend my time in a gym watching my children perform. And actually, I mean, honestly, I'm like, they struggle. And that's good. Yeah. But anytime, for me, it's like I love technology and I love all those things, but I do love the time that my kids just can't have it. Yeah. And sports is a time that forces them they have to put their phone away because you can't run around and jump with that phone in your pocket.
Yeah. That would be inappropriate, right? It's very obvious that that's not.
Well, and so in the wintertime, I spend my time in the gyms. In the fall, I will spend my time going to football games and such. But honestly, if you think about it, Jay, I know it sounds funny. You should probably come to a game sometime just to experience this. But it's like a revival. It's like a social experience. It's sometimes even a spiritual experience. Those games. I sat right between my wife and my mom the other day when Daniel was, he started varsity for the first time, which was amazing because he was pulled out. There were all these things that happened, but they're sitting there and he made one of the last shots of the game, or might have been the last shot, and it won him the game. They were both bawling, just crying because they knew of the hours he had put in, the struggle that he'd had, all these things. And, and I go there and I see all these friends and we talk and we buy Tiger Tail donuts or whatever and we eat them and it's fun. But those things are good community things. They're better than sitting at home alone. Yeah. But then again, like my kids and I, like, we love, like, there are certain games that we just love. My daughter right now is big into Cover Your Assets. Oh,
there's a new one that they made.
Is it the GOAT one?
The Kingdom one.
Oh, is it? I gotta go get that one.
It's by Cover the Assets. It's the same team that
I should go get that. If you want to find out somebody's personality really quick, you play that game with them. But Eva and I have to play that every day now. Yeah. She'll come to me and she's like, "Dad, we got to play this game." I don't know why. I mean, she beats me most of the time, and then she brags about it to everybody. But like, I think it's important for her. Maybe it's just the time that we have together to play this game. But I don't know.
And that we call it QT time, right? That quality time together. and how there is times and seasons. There's seasons in football. There's like a
Yes.
play rehearsal. Like you don't do it endlessly.
Yep.
There's times and seasons because you learn from it.
Yep.
And just like all the other things that we've been talking about, there's times and seasons, and it's okay if you're sad. It's okay if you're not very grateful
Yep.
right now.
Yep.
But we can pivot and we can learn and we can grow, and that's the plan.
I listen. You got to listen to this podcast. There's this one. Okay, it's Dennis Prager, but he talks about happiness. He did a show, a TV, or no, it was a radio show for like 20 years, and it was called The Happiness Hour.
Oh yeah, okay.
And so he talked about some of these things that helped him to be happy. It's been a little bit, but I'm almost 100% positive that the main thing was gratitude and happiness.
Yeah.
But he talked about so many different things but one of the things that he said that I love, he says I believe he says you have a moral obligation to be happy. And what he was saying is he's like, and he was talking about like, it is really, really hard to live with an unhappy spouse. It's really hard to live with an unhappy child. And he says, even if you're not feeling happy, you still have a moral obligation to be happy. And then he said something interesting that I'll never forget. He said that the very best, he's talking about atheism and believing in God. And he was saying something along the lines of, like the very best evidence for atheism is an unhappy Christian. Says, because if all these things you say are true, why are you not happy?
Yeah.
Well, that's a good question. So even if you don't feel it, you probably have a moral obligation to at least act happy.
Yeah.
Fake it till you make it.
At least pursue it.
At least pursue it. But if you're living life just sad and you feel like there's no hope and there's no anything,
Yeah.
then maybe don't act as religious because. Or maybe you aren't acting as religious. No, we want you to act religious. I'm not saying that.
Yes.
And like the caveat and the thing that's hard to talk about, like when you're talking about happiness, is there are a lot of exceptions.
Yes.
It's like not everyone can feel happy. I mean, some people are chemically unable to feel that.
Yeah.
Like, and that's hard. So no matter what gimmicks or things that, or habits that you may or may not be developing, like that may not make a difference, for those people. So you almost have to, it's like when you speak in generalities,
Yes.
you have to almost make the asterisks that's like, this does not include people who are chronically or, chemically imbalanced to where they cannot feel these things. Like, cause that wouldn't be fair to group them into this conversation or whatever. But.
Yes. And I love Elder Holland talks about like a broken vessel. It's like one of the life-changing
Yeah, that's a great
that
talk.
he has said, where he has experienced times of that dark depression.
Oh yeah.
And you can pray and you can go to church, but you also can go see a mental health representative.
Oh yeah.
That is professional, just like you do orthodontics.
Yes.
Matt Larson does mental health.
Do you know how many people I just refer to mental health people and as a
Yeah.
bishop? Most of the people.
Yes.
Like, because I go, as much as I'd love to think, like I can help you with your spirituality and we can talk about church and prayer and doctrine and good qualities, but if you have suicidal tendencies or if you are so addicted to this thing, truthfully, I don't know if your answers are going to be in the good. I mean, there are answers there and there are answers for everyone there. However, I'm not qualified. Like, I'm just not, that's not me. I mean, I can help you move your tooth, but that's my professional thing. But like, if there are professions that literally deal with, chronic, issues when it comes to all these different things or marital problems, like there are people who their job is to deal with marital problems and that's not me.
And there's
like,
research behind it and
huge.
it's a career that you can pursue.
And success rates, like
Yes.
truthfully, as a church leader, talking to people about problems that they have, I can't say that my success rate is huge. It's a lot better when there's professionals involved. But for me alone, like working with someone with some addiction or, some major issue, like I can't say I'm super successful there. Am I successful at helping people, learn more about God and learn more about the gospel and be inspired to do better? Yes. Very good at that. Not so good at helping people through a lot of the problems they have. And I wish I could say differently, but it's just a fact. But I don't know. I think if church leaders think that they're better or that somehow the Spirit will solve all things, I mean, the Spirit can solve all things. It's true.
Yeah.
But let's be practical as well. I mean, if you think that that's going to solve all the problems, then you're wondering why everyone in your ward's getting divorces and everyone's addicted to everything you can imagine.
Yeah.
And you're thinking that why isn't the Spirit solving all these things? Well, maybe because there's resources available to you that you're not using and you should probably use them.
Yeah. And you're not the right tool for it, right? But
Yeah.
you are a tool.
And
that
just
can
well, just
help.
like instruments, like I'm a really good 139. I'm not a 442.
Yeah.
Like I'm a really good 139. I'm not a good like smaller big step. Like there's certain things that I'm good at, and there are certain people that can come in that I can talk to that maybe my life experiences, and by sharing those things that it's going to be helpful for them. But that's not the case. And I think as leaders, I mean, just on Sunday, I'll tell you just a little story. I mean, I was connecting dots probably faster and in front of people that were not to be connected.
Oh.
So
Whoops.
yeah. Well, point of the matter is that I'll just tell you the specific story because I actually called and talked to 2 general authorities and 2 stake presidents, and I got conflicting answers. I could not find this in the manual, but I will tell you just because it's kind of an interesting topic. But in the Aaronic priesthood, and this is getting into the weeds a little bit, but you have deacon, teacher, and priest. And as a priest, every level or office, you can do different spiritual things. Okay, as a deacon, you pass the sacrament. You have as a teacher, you're a minister. You can prepare the sacrament. As a priest, you can bless the sacrament, but also you can baptize. You can baptize in the temple. You can ordain somebody and give them the Aaronic priesthood. So you can stand in the circle as a priest, and you can lay your hands on people's heads and ordain them to the office of a teacher, a priest. You can do things like that. These are, and especially for baptism, that's a saving ordinance. Like that's kind of important. Yeah. So in my effort to try to prepare my priests to be Melchizedek priesthood holders and be able to feel comfortable standing in a circle and placing hands on heads and all the things, we moved everybody up, and then we were setting apart presidencies. And I'm like, oh, well, deacon's quorum presidency, let's just have the priests help out.
Yeah.
And then I further said, I'm looking at the circle going, this is a mixed circle. There's Melchizedek priesthood holders and there's Aaronic priesthood holders. So I should probably perform this setting apart under the authority of the Aaronic priesthood, because that's what we all hold. Oh. Instead of the Melchizedek, because that's only what me and half of us hold. Yeah. Anyway, I just went forward, just did it all. Yeah. Then afterwards, I was kind of like feeling a little uneasy because I'm like, I have not seen that anywhere. And so I did some research on it, found out that I was on solid ground for most of what I did, but I did realize, one, you will always state your priesthood that you hold, regardless if it's a mixed circle, which I did not know. But if, for example, you're a dad and you don't have the Melchizedek priesthood and you are setting apart your son to be a deacon, you will say by the authority of the Aaronic priesthood. Okay. Now, this is where it gets into the weeds too, because as the bishop, I am the president of the Aaronic priesthood, and I technically operate and officiate under that function when I'm with the young men. And so technically it could be done under the Aaronic priesthood, which is something that's not anywhere in the manual. You go, well, but that's the office that I hold within the Aaronic priesthood, as a bishop is an office in the Aaronic priesthood. But setting apart, it typically says that you do that with the Melchizedek priesthood, and you're setting apart for a presidency, even though it's the Aaronic priesthood. Anyway, point is I went in on Sunday, I talked to a bunch of people, and I had literally conflicting views with general authorities and stake presidents as to whether or not those priests could even be in the circle to set apart a presidency, and what priesthood I would officiate under. Yeah. So in the end, what did I do? I went in there to the deacon's quorum, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to lead with my imperfections. I mess up every time. Or not every time, but every Sunday I will mess up with something. Yeah. I'll mess up with the order of something. I forgot to say somebody's name right. I didn't announce something the way that I should. I should have announced this all the way to the end. I didn't. And in this case, I am not totally certain if this was done perfectly. And as I hold you to the standard to say that prayer correctly, priests, and that we pass the sacrament reverently, and that we're not doing cartwheels, and that we're doing, we're just going to reset apart and because I actually did it all kind of differently. So I actually reset apart 2 people, and I just said, we're going to do this so that we're totally correct with the manual. And I make mistakes, and that's okay.
And you came in and fixed it.
And we fixed it. Yeah. But it was for me though, that's a learning experience. And as a leader, and going back to the whole, like, I'm not perfect, and you should never function as if you are, because that's a dangerous game to play. Because what happens if somebody then starts to perceive you as perfect, and then you do something bad?
Yeah.
Or you leave the church.
Yeah.
And now all of your people who thought you were perfect, now they are struggling with their testimonies.
Yeah.
So I think it's important as leaders to not only, to correct things when we do things wrong, and to be humble about it. Everyone is gracious. They are fine with people making mistakes. I am fine with that. What you don't love is the arrogance and the cover up when you make a mistake and everybody knows that you did, and then you say nothing.
Yeah.
Or you don't fix it.
Yeah.
That's way worse. Way worse.
Yeah.
The better thing to do is to just say, I made a mistake and I'm going to fix it. And that's a good example. And as a leader, when someone comes in and says, I have this problem, to know where your limitations are, and to say, you know what? I'm grateful you came to me with that problem, but I'm not Superman. And so I'm going to find Superman. I'm going to help you. And so President Vance, he trained one time, and he learned this actually from, the name will come to me, but he said the most important thing to say, like when someone comes in and it confesses something, or comes in with a major problem, or, is a victim of sexual abuse or something, is to say, I believe you. I would have to go find it, but it's like, I believe you. I empathize with you. I'm going to find someone who can be helpful, and let's move. And you did nothing wrong. I think those were the 4 things that it was important to tell people. And a lot of times the help, like to think that like I'm Superman and I can just help you with this, is definitely not correct.
Yeah.
Like I am not a professional for those situations, but I can help you find the right person for that.
And I think taking all that back to parenting, right? Like I believe you, I hear you, I empathize with you, right? And like we can fix this.
Yeah, and it might be not me.
Yeah.
And it might be the other parent, or it might be a sibling, it might be an uncle, it might be a grandparent.
Someone at Taco Tuesday.
Or it might be someone that's a professional, and that's okay. Like, but you find the help that you need, and not cover it up.
Right.
Because, and I'm not saying that like all weaknesses need to be like at the forefront of who we are. Like
we don't like hang our dirty laundry out front.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like but I do feel like, especially in church, like there is, the perception is reality. And a lot of times when you come to church dressing your best and everybody's dressing their best, they don't feel like anybody has any problems. And I know we talk about this all the time, and in leadership we talk about it, but when people come in and they go, yeah, everybody else looks great and I'm just not.
So do you know that I wear pants to church now?
Yeah, you wore pants to state conference.
Yeah,
There's the four-way things.
So like
that come up to here, right?
But but it's because I really struggled. Like there was a time, and it was actually mailboxes, and there's whole stories about it.
Oh, I remember.
Yes, yeah. But like I didn't really want to come to church, like, and because people were kind of mean to me, and I was trying my best and doing this community thing, which is like whatever, all the things that happened, and I decided, you know what, I'm gonna come in pants. And people can talk about my pants instead, because like a lot of people don't wear pants. And I actually knew that there was some young women in our ward that wanted to wear pants, and their parents were like so against it. And I was like, oh, even better. I'm like wearing pants and sitting in front of them because.
Because you're taking something that doesn't matter.
Yes.
But people think that it matters more than other things that really do matter.
Yes.
And you're like, well, this is not an issue. Like I know it sounds funny, and this is as far as I can go, Jamie. I cannot wear a dress to church, but I wear funny ties and funny socks. And so when I sit on the stands, I'm tall enough that when I do this, everyone can see my socks. And I'm glad that nobody from the stake was here for this, open mic Sunday that we had. But everybody commented on my socks that came up.
Fantastic.
They all wanted to see my socks, and they were crazy. And then they would comment on the socks before they would give brother testimony. The only thing that it was really good for was that everybody wanted to come up to brother testimony to see these socks I was wearing. But I think, my grandpa, he would have never in 100 years. He would wear black, blue, brown.
Socks. That's it.
That's it. did I tell you this about my dad?
Yeah,
about the white shirt?
Tell it. It's
well,
awesome.
I can tell the story, but it is funny. Like my dad is colorblind, so my mom would pretty much dress him. My grandpa was the same way. I am not colorblind. I'm thankful for that. But he kind of had white shirt, ties, that's it. And so in his practice, in my grandfather's practice, my dad's practice, it was only white shirts and ties. So when I showed up to the practice and I ran out of my white shirts by Wednesday, I came in a blue shirt with a nice tie. I mean, it looked nice, very professional, very much in line with anybody would say you look great. But my dad came to me noticing that I wasn't in a white shirt, and he said, we only wear white shirts and ties here in this practice. And
in this straight and narrow practice.
Yeah, in this straight and narrow practice that we call. And I was like, oh, well, Dad, I mean, I can go buy some, but I'm kind of out. I have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm out of white shirts. He's like, well, you need to go buy some of it. So I did. I wanted to conform. I wanted to be, I didn't want to rock the boat. When you join a practice, when you join a business, your goal is to jump on board and learn and not rock the boat. And then eventually, help. And then you can change the course and the direction, but you got to jump on without.
That's a very mature way to approach things.
Yeah, right. I mean, you can blow it up. Don't get me wrong. There are times to blow things up.
Yeah.
I can think of many times in my life when, I remember one time walking into a church setting where it was a baptism for a 8-year-old, and they had totally decorated the sacrament room, and they had this big throne chair in front. Had a white flowing cloth over the top of it. They decorated with flowers, and that's the focus in the sacrament room in particular. And I'm like, do we do this for other baptisms? Like, what is that? Like, we don't do this for our convert baptisms. And they had pictures of him, doing the whole. Yeah, I mean, it was over the top, and that was a situation. I was like, look, we can't do this. Like, the focus needs to
rein it in.
We gotta pull it in. Did it all happen right away? No. The only concession that I got was they took the white tarp thing off and they moved the throne chair to the audience. And I said, there's no throne chairs in the church. There's someone who presides, to make sure that that the meeting's good, but we don't have throne chairs. Like, that's not a thing, especially not for an 8-year-old being baptized. That's awkward anyway. Let's move that back. And over time we did change it. But so there are instances to blow it up. But in this case, I was like, I'm not going to blow it up with my white shirt. Or with my blue shirt. I'm just going to wear the white shirt. But we did that for a while. Then my dad left on his mission. I became the owner of the practice. And immediately it was going to be, we can wear whatever shirts we want to wear. And there were girls in the practice assistants that were like, I don't know, like, you're wearing...
This is against the rules.
This is against the rules that have been set since the 1967. So,
yeah.
But then, then the fun ties came in, the fun socks came in, all those things came in. I was wearing fun, everything. Lots of fun things. And my dad came back then after he'd been gone for 3 years, and he shows up to a practice where the girls are not all wearing the same kinds of shoes. They're wearing the shoes that are comfortable to them, and there's different colors, and I'm wearing different shirts and different ties, and it's a little bit more fun. And he's like, and he comes back in and he's like, well, Jordan, and I pulled him aside. I said, Dad, you're in a white shirt, and we don't wear white shirts anymore in this practice. We only wear colored shirts. And actually what's funny is, even more than that, I had started to wear bow ties.
Oh my God.
I felt like they were more hygienic.
Yeah.
They're not flopping around, and I still really like bow ties. Plus, I'd been to the University of Louisville, and we wore bow ties to church every Sunday. Like, it was weird to wear a long tie. We wore bow ties. And I was like, Dad, we wear colored shirts and bow ties now, so you're going to have to conform. Yeah. He still hasn't. He has never worn a colored shirt a single day in the practice.
Do you give him one for Father's Day?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I've given him plenty of. He has lots of colored shirts, and he has lots of fun ties, and he does a pretty good job with his ties. He does wear kind of funny ties, and it probably goes back. I shouldn't be, we can just say maybe he has a little bit of a disability and that he cannot see color, and so I don't want to make fun and rock that boat, and I get it, but it is my brother Wade I don't think he's ever worn a white shirt to practice orthodontics. It's just straight colored shirts, and it's his only way he can show his. It's the only way to rock the boat for him, because sometimes people just want to rock the boat. Yes. And sometimes you need to rock the boat, but some people, their personality is to rock the boat.
Yes.
And so.
Well, so back to CliftonStrengths is everybody has their talents, right? And you sort it and you see it, and there's raw talent and there's mature talent. So the same talent can come. Like, there's a skill to rocking the boat that maybe isn't like drowning everybody. Right.
Right. Well, it's to wake people up sometimes. Every time when there's a new person called to any calling, they are by design going to rock that boat. Even when they have mission presidents that change from one to the other, they will overlap for at most an afternoon.
It's amazing.
And it is amazing that it even works. But the point is that the church realizes that there's power in disruption. They want you to rock the boat. They need everybody to wake up. They need you to not be complacent. And so there is a time when you want to jump on and just kind of be in there. Like when I was called to serve with President Vance, I mean, I knew I was going to rock the boat. I had plenty of emails and calls from people like, the 16 plus thing, we don't like that. And this fifth Tuesday combined building activity, I don't know about that. Or this big group thing that you're doing, or you want to have how many stake youth events? I get it.
Yeah.
But that was like President Vance being a great leader that he is. I jumped on wanting to not rock the boat. He wanted me to rock the boat a little bit. And it was mainly just because like, we just need some more energy.
Yeah.
And that's great. I can do energy.
Yeah.
I can do energy. I can do events. I can find people that are good at those things too. But I think the point is that, it's okay to rock the boat. It's not okay to drown everyone. And in certain circumstances you need to, in other circumstances you just want to not do that. But white shirts, colored shirts, the parable of the shirts.
The parable of the shirts in the orthodontic since 1967.
Since 1967, yeah.
That's fantastic.
Lots of fun things. But Jamie, what's going to be fun over the course of time is going to be, what do you know more because you know more about this?
Yeah.
What do you know? I mean, even if you think about this podcast world, and what do I know more about the gospel because I know about this technology?
Yeah.
Like that's an interesting topic. When you combine those kind of things, that's when I like to listen.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I already know about the gospel, but I want to know this view, like, cause that's a different view. And that's why it's important to have lots of different speakers at church. It's important to listen to people who are different and that see things differently, because we all see our part of the elephant. We all know that part. But if in order to really understand truth, we know that we see life through a lens that clouds our vision. We don't see things for as they really are. We see things for as we are.
Right.
And we need to be able to see other people's perspective to really get an idea as to what we're looking at. And so, we have different people with different specialties, different things that they do, but we all share in common the gospel of the Savior and how we are trying to move forward to better our lives and become happy. But your series kind of always revolve around a theme that really what you're trying to do is gain perspective to see what it really is and how we really can approach it properly. And so I think that's valuable.
And I just listened to a podcast lately that said, do it to bless, not to impress.
Yeah.
And if we, in God's grand scheme, motive matters. In God's currency is what it said.
Yep.
And as we can, and that's what I hope with this podcast. Because I go back and listen to like 2011, Jamie. Like you knew nothing.
Yeah.
Like you were overzealous and excited to rock that boat and drowning everybody.
But the truth is the more you know, the less you know.
Yes.
Because when you start to see more of the picture, you start to go, wow, there's a lot more picture. Yeah. Like it's not as small as I thought it was. It's a lot bigger. But that also makes it exciting. Like it's exciting there's different, there's different places that are unexplored, even if it's just to us, but the exploration of qualities, characteristics, the mind, happiness, different traits and qualities is a worthwhile endeavor, and it's very stimulating once you start to see it more. But people that don't really get that really don't understand life, because that is life.
Yeah.
Like if life is learning about these things and applying them into your life for your benefit and for the benefit of others. But I do like, the pure intentions or better intentions. It's hard to say what pure intentions are exactly, but I do feel like there's some people who have an innate ability to sniff out bad intentions. My wife's like that, very much so. Like I kind of feel like everybody has great intentions, but she realizes and knows that most people probably don't have the greatest intentions, or if at a minimum, they're very self-centered intentions. Yeah. But if you can figure out the intentions, you can usually learn more about where they're coming from and what they're saying. But I like what you're saying there, to say like good intentions, not to impress, but to help and to bless people's lives. And if you can go in with that attitude, you'll always probably be on the right track.
Yeah.
So
thanks, Jordan.
Hey, it's always fun to come talk to you. These are stimulating conversations, and we probably don't have enough of them in society, but they're good.
Yeah. So that sounds like we're going to do another one.
Oh,
and we're not going to wait so far between.
You know what would be really neat is or what I've been thinking about a lot recently is, for Crystal's 40th birthday and for our wedding anniversary this last year, I said, I'm going to do something that is a little outside of the box. And we're going to go,
You?
Yeah,
outside of the
well,
box?
she is very like it's hard. Like the hardest thing for me is truthfully, I love creativity, and I love to just like even though sometimes my traits will tell me that I like things organized and very much planned out. I love spontaneity. Like I like to go with the flow of things. Like,
Adaptability.
but it's a planned one. Like it's like I'm going to go on vacation and I'm going to make sure that I have a car, and that I have some things that I would like. But Google Maps like has been the best for me to plan because I will plan out everything, and then I'll just when I'm there, we'll just go do one of these dots. But I'm not saying I have to do all of them or any of them, but I'm there.
Yeah.
So I found these great tickets from Idaho Falls to Venice, and then from Rome back to Idaho Falls. It was $630 a person for round trip tickets.
Yeah.
And then I found this cruise that went out of Venice to all these Greek isles, and then we went back to Rome and spent a few days in Rome. I love Rome. I love that city maybe more than any other city that I've ever been in. And the reason why though was because to me, I saw beauty everywhere.
Yeah.
I loved the architecture. I knew the craft that went into like chiseling, like, and especially from a dental mindset, taking a block of marble and chiseling this beautiful statue, architecture, whatever it may be. But I realized that for me, art truly is like to elevate. It's to look at it or to listen to it and go, I feel closer to God because this is not that this is perfection, but it really shows me that I am very little compared to this person, but other people look at art as a way to challenge the status quo, and I look at that art and I go, a banana nailed to a wall doesn't inspire me.
It's duct tape to the wall.
Sure,
Come on.
whatever, duct tape to the wall. But I get that other people, they like that. Like they think that is really cool and neat. I like things that are difficult and that take a lot of skill and struggles. Banana taped, I'm like, I can do that. If I can do that, it's not art to me. Like, but I learned a lot going there. Like my favorite thing, the fingers,
Yes.
God and Adam.
Yes.
I sat and stared at.
Painting.
Oh yes, so in the Sistine Chapel.
Yeah.
Where
And it's like on the ceiling.
I
Right?
loved that. I sat in that room for an hour staring at that, and I thought, how this is amazing. And to paint it in such a relatively short amount of time, it's very similar to like the Book of Mormon and translate that in such a short amount of time, like great works of art. But as I sat there and stared at that, the one thing that hit me like really hard was if you look at that picture of God and Adam and you stare at it long enough, you're the contrasting of very dark colors for God, and God is stretching, reaching, like his whole body is reaching to Adam, and Adam is sitting there lazily. His finger's not even stretched out, whereas God's finger's stretched out. And it made me think, I'm like, God is trying to touch man.
Yeah.
And he can. Adam, all he has to do is just a little effort. Just move the finger and you will touch the finger of God. Yeah. But he's not. And that's I think to me, that was representative of the normal and natural state of man. It's to be lazy. It's to be not want to connect really. To God is there reaching. He's there. Yeah. I mean, and a lot of times we see him maybe more in the rear view mirror than in the front view mirror. But if we would just a little bit of effort, and we can touch it and we can feel it and we can know it. But you got to put forth a little effort. Yeah. You can't just think that God is just going to reach out and touch you for no reason. Like he's there and he wants to. But
that's awesome.
But I sat there, and everywhere I went in Rome were all these pictures. I'm like, these are all just sermons.
Yeah.
Life sermons. I love that.
Happening right now.
Yes. Yeah. Our history is, anyway, I love history.
That's awesome. So now really I'm going to go on forever. What time is it? Do we need to go?
2:00. I've got, let's see here. I do have a game at some point. Oh wait, Crystal tells me I have to have food at the high school at 2:30, then go to a meeting at 3:30. So I probably need to go.
Yeah. Okay, 2 minutes. Do you know the Oliver Granger story?
Yeah. Well, no. Remind me.
So Oliver Granger was, so he like had visions. Angel Moroni came to him and said he was going to be part of the restoration. Like big deals.
Okay, I have heard his name.
And then he they were going on. They
Isn't
got
his
kicked
name
out.
mentioned?
Yeah, in the Doctrine and
Okay,
Covenants. So
okay.
your sacrifice is greater than your increase. That's what's mentioned in Oliver Granger. So they go on to Nauvoo, and Joseph Smith asks him to go back to Kirtland to settle the estates of the church. And he did, but not greatly. I mean, nobody wanted to buy anything. Nobody really wanted to settle. And he wrapped up all of the things that he did. He was like half blind. Like there was just a lot of things that happened. So this summer we went on a church history tour with my kids. And short of the long, we were at the graveyard that he's buried in. And his tombstone is like so decrepit. I'll show you a picture. Which I'm walking through this grave site, seeing like these beautiful artwork because I'm an artist, right? Like all of the art and like the calligraphy on this stone. Yeah. And his, like it says Oliver Granger, and like it doesn't even fit his name. That like R is like this little tiny bit. Like the font, they like ran out of room, so it's like Oliver Granger.
Sad.
Like it's so sad, and it's like falling apart. Like maybe there was a B on it at one point or something, and it's just like all crumbled. And so we go, and like the tour guide Will, who's going to be on the podcast, he said like this is revelation right now. We will talk about him because his sacrifice was greater than his increase. And he essentially failed at what people in the world would think of settling the debts.
Sure.
So that happened. We get to Nauvoo on this church history tour, and we go to the Sarah Granger Kimball house. And she's the one that started the Relief Society with Emma Smith.
Yeah.
So we listened to all the stuff, and I was like, okay, anyways, there's a connection between the two. And the connection is Sarah is Oliver's daughter. And she went on. So Oliver is like the grandpa of Relief Society. But in the world, he really didn't do much. And I think as parenting, it's helped me to realize like my sacrifice is greater than my increase. And like this podcast doesn't make any money, right? Like there's not, it's not really whatever. It is what it is. Like I enjoy it. And I'm not really doing great things, but I am doing great things. And it's okay that, because I'll have these kids that will go and be great people.
Right. But just like children, just like these artists that we've talked about, a lot of times their sacrifice and their increase is not really recognized until later. And that's unfortunate. We'd love to be able to see all the successes and all of the great things that we've done or by ripple effect have happened. But the reality is we are very fortunate to see any of those. Yeah. Because most of it is
small and simple things, like you said at the beginning, with the teeth moving.
Well, and that's why, I mean, and it's nice to be able to look at befores and afters, but in our lives, we'll be able to do that at the end, and maybe at the end of all things, look at befores and afters. But yeah, in the moment, we rarely get glimpses into that. But it is fun to think about. That's why you're like a futuristic person, because you love to look into the future and go, hey, like maybe this will make a difference. Yeah. And it will. I mean, it will. And if nothing else, it might, like I said, it might spark some great grandchild into
way down the line.
Yeah, into doing something that is impactful for them at that time that they really felt. But maybe it would not have happened had you not laid the seed work for that to grow.
Yeah. And speaking of seed, you plant it in SHIT, right? Yeah. Like nobody really talks about that part of the like faith growing. Yeah. Like it's a pile of manure that that's a big part of that faith growing. Yeah. Is all the hard parts that you have to go through.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, that's just part of life. Once again, the seed probably doesn't even want to talk about that part, but
I'm surrounded.
But in the end, it's like, well, all of us kind of had our start in some sort of a challenge or trial. And every great story that we watch has challenges and trials that are overcome. That's why we like stories, because that is the story of life. That's the story of our life. And it wouldn't be a good movie if it didn't have some of that in there. That's the spice there. So,
thanks, Jordan.
Thank you.
Oh, you're awesome.
Oh, fun times, Jamie.
I never want this to end, but that's it for today's episode of JOYrific. Before you go, I want to leave you with a little challenge. What is your B word? What are you in the middle of learning, embracing, or becoming? Maybe today you're being curious, kind, brave, or still. Whatever it is, lean into it. If you have a story to share, I'd love to hear it. Visit www.joyrific.com to connect and collaborate as we build our JOYrific community. Thank you for making it to the end of this episode. I know that time is valuable and we appreciate you. Until next time, be curious, be helpful, be kind, be you, because you are becoming and you are beautiful. Are you looking for a place to call home in Eastern Idaho? If you are getting ready to buy, sell, or need property management for your real estate investments, the Be Home team, brokered with Silver Creek Realty Group, is here to help. Our mission is simple: thrive your hive. Call or text 208-254-1119 to connect with us today. If you're local to Eastern Idaho or planning a trip, reach out. We'd love to send you our Taco Tuesday calendar and menu. Taco Tuesday is an open invitation to chat with Garth and Jamie while enjoying authentic, delicious tacos like birria, barbacoa, brisket. My favorite is the chicken shawarma with tzatziki sauce. It's a perfect opportunity for great conversations to talk about your real estate dreams. Let's connect.